If you're here right now, in the middle of the night, or at the end of a long day, there's probably a reason. Maybe your heart is heavy. Maybe you're carrying something you don't know how to put down. Maybe sleep won't come because your mind keeps returning to the same question, the same person, the same ache. You're not alone in that. For 800 years, people have turned to Rumi in moments just like this. Not because he offers easy answers or quick comfort, but because he understood something most of us forget, that our deepest pain is not a mistake. It's not something to fix or push away or be ashamed of. It's a doorway. Tonight, I want to share with you the teachings that have brought peace to millions of seekers, dreamers, and wounded hearts across centuries. These aren't abstract philosophies or distant wisdom. These are truths born from Rumi's own grief, his own transformation, his own journey from breaking to breaking open. So let yourself settle in. Let your shoulders drop. You don't need to do anything right now except listen, because the very thing that brought you here tonight, that heaviness, that longing, that beautiful, terrible openness in your chest, Rumi would tell you that's not your weakness. That's where the light gets in. Chapter 1. The Wound as the Place of Growth. There's something Rumi understood that most of us spend our whole lives trying to avoid. Suffering is not a detour from the path. It is the path. When you're in the middle of heartbreak, when loss feels like it's carved a hollow place in your chest, it doesn't feel like a path at all. It feels like falling, like the ground disappeared beneath you and you're just tumbling through dark space with nothing to hold on to. But here's what Rumi would whisper to you in that moment. You are exactly where you need to be. The pain you're feeling right now is not an accident. It's not punishment. It's not evidence that you did something wrong or that life is cruel. It's simply part of what it means to be human, to love deeply, to want things, to open yourself to this world. And when you can stop running from it, even for a moment, something remarkable begins to happen. The hurt you're carrying is trying to show you something. Beneath the ache, there are old fears you've been avoiding, beliefs you've held about yourself that aren't true, places inside you that have been waiting, sometimes for years, to finally be seen and tended to. Pain has this strange gift. It brings everything to the surface. The things you've pushed down, the parts of yourself you've hidden away, the truths you've been too afraid to look at. The wound says, look at what's really here. And yes, looking hurts, but there's something else happening too. Your heart, which you thought was just breaking, is actually breaking open. That shell you've built up over the years, the one made of self-protection and old disappointments and all the times you told yourself not to feel too much, it's cracking. And through those cracks, something can finally get in. Light, tenderness, a kind of understanding you couldn't access when everything was closed and defended. The very opening that feels like it's destroying you is also making space for wisdom to enter, for a deeper kind of love, for contact with something vast and true that's been waiting patiently for you all along. But here's where most of us get stuck. We fight it. We push against the pain, try to think our way out of it, numb it, fix it, make it go away as fast as possible. And in that fighting, we create a second suffering, the suffering of resistance itself. Like trying to swim against a current that's actually trying to carry us somewhere we need to go. There's a moment, and it's different for everyone, when something in you finally exhales. When you stop pretending you're okay and just let yourself say, this hurts. This really, really hurts. Not with drama, not with collapse, just with simple, gentle honesty. That's when transformation begins. Not in fixing the pain, but in being willing to sit with it, to stop running, to turn toward it with curiosity instead of fear and ask, not why is this happening to me? In that bitter, resentful way, but what are you trying to teach me? What am I supposed to learn from this? That question changes everything. It turns your suffering from something that's happening to you into something that's happening for you. The wound stops being your enemy and becomes, instead, your teacher. And as you sit with it, as you let it speak to you, something else shifts too. You start to understand other people differently. That friend who's been distant, that family member who hurt you, that stranger who snapped at you in line. Suddenly you can feel, really feel, that they're carrying their own wounds too. Everyone is. Your pain becomes a bridge. Not a wall that separates you from the world, but a bridge that connects you to every other person who has ever loved and lost, who has ever hoped and been disappointed, who has ever felt too much and tried to hold it all inside. The wound deepens your compassion. It makes you softer, more human. This doesn't happen overnight, of course. Healing doesn't follow a straight line. There will be days when you feel like you're moving backward, when the old pain surges up again and you think, I thought I was past this. But that's part of it too. The light enters slowly, in stages, in layers. Each time you turn toward the wound instead of away from it, each time you choose honesty over pretending, each time you let yourself feel what you feel without judgment, a little more wisdom settles in. A little more of you becomes integrated, whole. And then, one day, you notice something. The wound is still there. It didn't disappear. The scar remains. But it's different now. It's not just pain anymore. It's become something else. Something tender and wise and strangely beautiful. The very thing that broke you has become your gift. The place where you were most vulnerable has become the place where you're most strong. Not because the pain made you harder, but because it made you truer. And when someone else comes to you with their own heartbreak, their own confusion, their own dark night of the soul, you'll know exactly what to say. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've walked through that fire. You've let the wound teach you. You've allowed it to crack you open and fill you with light. That's what Rumi means when he says the wound is where the light enters. It's not poetry. It's not a metaphor. It's the lived truth of what happens when you stop treating your pain as your enemy and start treating it as your initiation into a deeper, truer, more luminous way of being alive. So tonight, as you let yourself rest, let yourself also let go of the idea that you need to be fixed, that there's something wrong with you for hurting, that you should be further along than you are. You're not broken. You're breaking open. And that is exactly what's supposed to be happening. Chapter 2. Letting go to be free. There's something else Rumi understood, something that follows naturally from the wound. Once you've been broken open, once the light has started to enter, you begin to notice all the things you've been carrying that you don't actually need anymore. Think about it for a moment. How much of what you hold on to isn't actually serving you? How many old fears, old stories, old ways of protecting yourself are you still dragging around? Not because they help, but simply because they're familiar. We all do this. We cling to things, not just to people or possessions, but to ideas about who we are, what we deserve, what's possible for us. We hold on to these attachments so tightly that they stop being comfort and start being chains. You tell yourself you need this person's approval to feel worthy. You need this job to prove your value. You need things to unfold in exactly this way or else everything falls apart. And slowly, without realizing it, your whole life starts to revolve around these needs. Your choices get smaller. Your freedom gets traded for the illusion of safety. But here's what's quietly suffocating beneath all that holding on. It's you. The real you. The one who exists independent of all those conditions and requirements and stories about how life has to be. Those stories, the ones you've been telling yourself for years, they've shaped everything. I'm not good enough. People always leave. I can't trust anyone. This is just how I am. These narratives loop in your mind like old recordings, and after a while, you don't even question them anymore. They become the lens through which you see everything. And the thing is, some of those stories might have been true once. Maybe someone did leave. Maybe you were hurt. Maybe you learned, as a child, that the world wasn't safe and you needed to protect yourself. But that was then. The story that helped you survive 10 years ago might be the very thing preventing you from truly living now. And still you hold it, recite it, let it define you, because letting it go feels dangerous. It feels like losing yourself. Fear is clever that way. It convinces you that the familiar pain is better than the unknown freedom. It whispers, at least you know this hurt. At least you know how to live with this weight. Who would you even be without it? So you stay. You cling. You keep the dead leaves on the branches. But letting go isn't what fear tells you it is. It doesn't mean you have to leave your job or end your relationship or move across the country. Though sometimes it does mean those things. Most of the time, though, letting go is quieter than that. It's an inner shift, a loosening of your grip on how you think things should be. It's releasing the demand that someone understand you perfectly. It's dropping the expectation that life owes you an explanation for why things happened the way they did. It's putting down the resentment you've been carrying like a stone in your pocket, wearing a groove into your hip from the weight of it. Rumi loved the image of the tree dropping its leaves in autumn. Have you ever really watched that happen? The tree doesn't agonize over each leaf. It doesn't hate them or try to push them away. It simply recognizes, this leaf has served its purpose. Its time has passed, and it lets go. So gently, so naturally. And what happens next? Space opens. The branches that were crowded with dead, brown leaves suddenly have room to breathe. And when spring comes, when the conditions are right, new buds can form. Fresh growth becomes possible. The same is true for you. Every story you're clinging to, every outdated way of protecting yourself, every role you've been playing that no longer fits who you actually are, all of it is taking up space. And as long as you hold on to it, there's no room for what wants to come next. No space for new relationships that aren't based on old wounds. No room for insights that could shift everything. No opening for opportunities you can't even imagine yet because you're too busy tending to what's already dead. When you finally let go, when you release those old masks and stories and defenses, something remarkable happens. You start to see yourself more clearly. Not the you that fear constructed, not the you that trauma shaped, but the you that's been there all along, underneath everything, waiting. More honest, more present, less defended, more you. And yes, there's grief in this. Real grief. Because even when you're letting go of something that hurt you, even when you're releasing a story that kept you small, there's still a loss. You're saying goodbye to a version of yourself, to a way of moving through the world that, however painful, was yours. You knew it. You understood it. So let yourself feel sad about that. Let yourself mourn. That sadness isn't a sign you're doing it wrong. It's part of the cleansing. It's the proof that you're actually letting go of something real, not just performing some spiritual exercise. But here's what's on the other side of that grief. Lightness. Not the lightness of not caring anymore. Not indifference or detachment or some cold, removed way of being. That's not freedom. That's just another form of protection. Real freedom is something different. It's when you can love someone without needing to control them. When you can care deeply about something without being destroyed if it changes. When you can show up fully, give everything you have, and still remain whole when things don't go the way you hoped. You become like water then, flowing, adaptable, alive. Not rigid, not grasping, not trying to freeze yourself into one shape forever. And the beautiful thing, the thing Rumi would want you to know, is that this isn't something you do once and then you're done. Life doesn't work that way. Letting go isn't a destination. It's a practice. A constant, gentle returning. Because life keeps offering you new things to release. New disappointments to put down. New versions of yourself that worked for a while but don't fit anymore. New expectations that sounded reasonable but are actually just creating suffering. Each time you notice yourself clinging to an outcome, to being right, to needing someone to change, to some old story about who you are, you get another chance. Another opportunity to soften your grip, to drop the dead leaf, to make space for what wants to grow. And each time you do, you become a little freer, a little more yourself, a little more able to meet life as it actually is, not as you desperately need it to be. So as you lie here tonight, feeling the weight of your body sinking into rest, you might also let yourself imagine, what would it feel like to put something down? Not in some dramatic, forceful way, just gently, the way a tree releases a leaf. What would it feel like to stop carrying that old story, just for tonight? To loosen your grip on how things should have gone? To let yourself be exactly who you are right now, without the burden of who you think you're supposed to be? What would it feel like to be that light? You don't have to figure it all out right now. You don't have to let go of everything all at once. But maybe, just for this moment, you could let yourself rest without holding on to anything at all. Just you. Just here. Just breathing. Chapter 3: Surrender and Trust in the Divine. And once you've tasted that freedom, once you've felt what it's like to put something down and discover you're still whole, still here, something even deeper becomes possible. Surrender. Now, that word probably makes you tense up a little, because surrender sounds like defeat, doesn't it? Like giving up, like admitting you've lost. But that's not what Rumi means at all. Think about how much energy you spend every single day trying to control things. You wake up with a plan, how the day should go, how people should respond to you, how you should feel, what should happen next. And then you spend hours, sometimes years, pushing and managing and strategizing to make reality match that plan. Your ego is brilliant at this. It genuinely believes that if it just works hard enough, thinks ahead enough, protects itself cleverly enough, it can manage every outcome. Keep all the bad things from happening. Guarantee all the good things arrive. And so you live in this constant state of low-grade tension. Always planning, always preparing, always bracing for what might go wrong, always trying to hold everything together with the sheer force of your will. Exhausting, isn't it? Because here's what your ego doesn't want you to see. You were never actually in control in the first place. You can plan every detail of your day and then someone gets sick. You can work for years towards something and then circumstances shift in a way you never anticipated. You can try to protect your heart and still end up blindsided by loss. No matter how carefully you strategize, life remains fundamentally unpredictable. And recognizing that, really letting that truth land, is terrifying. Because if you're not in control, then what? What happens if you stop trying so hard to steer everything? This is where most people spend their entire lives. Caught between the illusion of control and the terror of admitting they don't have it. But there's another way. Surrender isn't about giving up. It's about saying yes to what's actually here, right now, instead of exhausting yourself fighting against reality. It's a conscious choice to stop arguing with this moment and instead meet it as it is. Not in resignation, not in defeat, but in recognition. This is what's happening. This is what's real. And from here, from this truth, I can act. That yes changes everything. Because when you stop using all your energy to resist what is, suddenly you have that energy available for something else. For wiser action. For genuine response instead of desperate reaction. But saying yes to reality requires something most of us have been avoiding our whole lives. Trust. Trust that there's something larger at work here than just your anxious plans. Trust that maybe, just maybe, there's a wisdom moving through life that's deeper and more intelligent than your ego's frantic calculations. Rumi called it the divine. You might call it the universe, or life itself, or God, or the way things unfold. The name matters less than the felt sense of it, that there's an order underneath the chaos, a current beneath the surface, something that knows where it's going, even when you don't. And when you can trust that, even a little, something in you finally exhales. Those rigid plans you've been white-knuckling, you can hold them more lightly. Plans are useful, of course they are, but they're meant to be guides, not prisons. When you surrender, you stay open to life showing you a different path, a better way, something you never could have imagined from inside your limited perspective. The fear starts to soften too. So much of your need to control comes from fear of the unknown, doesn't it? What if I fail? What if I'm alone? What if everything falls apart? But trust whispers something different. What if you're being guided? What if the unknown isn't empty, but full of possibilities you can't see yet? What if you don't have to know how everything works out in order to take the next step? This is when peace begins to grow. Not because your circumstances become perfect, but because something inside you stops struggling quite so hard. You yield. You soften. You stop insisting that life bend to your will and instead start asking, what is life asking of me right now? And in that yielding, you discover you can breathe again. It's like you've been swimming against a current your whole life, and suddenly you realize there's a current. It's been there all along, and it's not trying to drown you, it's trying to carry you somewhere. So you let yourself float. You stop thrashing. You start moving with life instead of against it. And it doesn't mean you stop swimming entirely. You still make efforts, you still take action, but now those actions feel different. Less desperate, more aligned, like you're cooperating with something instead of fighting it at every turn. You begin to notice the small signs, the gentle nudges, the doors that open when you stop forcing the ones that are clearly closed. You start to sense where life is pointing, and you follow that, even when it's not what you planned. Especially when it's not what you planned. This is surrender as Rumi understood it. Not passive, not powerless, but actively listening, humbly following, acting, yes, but from a place of quiet attunement rather than panic or pride. It's the difference between a toddler throwing a tantrum because they want something now, and a person who has learned to wait, to watch, to trust that what they need will come in the right way, at the right time. And here's the gift hidden in this practice, the one you probably weren't expecting. Each time you surrender, each time you say your wisdom, not just mine or I don't understand this, but I trust you, you're building something sacred. A relationship, an intimacy with the divine. Because surrender is, in its deepest form, a kind of devotion. It's saying, over and over, I don't have to figure everything out alone. I don't have to carry all of this by myself. Something larger is holding me. And the more you practice this, the more you feel it. Not as a concept or a belief, but as a living presence. A sense of being held, even when things are difficult. Of being guided, even when you can't see the path. Of being loved, even when you feel utterly lost. This is what Rumi wants you to know tonight. You are not navigating this life alone. There is a wisdom underneath your worry, a love beneath your loneliness, an order underneath what looks like chaos. And you can trust it. You can lean into it. You can stop carrying everything on your own shoulders and let yourself be carried for a while. Not because you're weak, not because you've given up, but because you've finally understood. True strength isn't about controlling everything. It's about knowing when to let go, when to trust, when to surrender into something so much vaster than you that it can hold all your fear, all your pain, all your questions, and still remain unshaken. So tonight, as sleep begins to find you, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know what tomorrow brings. You don't have to figure out how everything's going to work out. You can just rest in this. You are held. You are guided. You are loved. And that is enough. That has always been enough. Chapter 4. Silence and Inner Listening. But how do you actually hear that guidance? How do you know which way life is pointing when everything feels loud and confused and overwhelming? Rumi would tell you, be still, be quiet, listen, not with your ears, with something deeper. Most of us spend our entire lives in noise. And I don't just mean the sounds around you, the traffic, the notifications, the television humming in the background. I mean the noise inside, the constant stream of thoughts that never stops. What do I need to do next? Did I say the wrong thing earlier? What if this doesn't work out? I should have done that differently. Why did they look at me that way? What's going to happen tomorrow? On and on and on. From the moment you wake up until the moment you finally fall asleep, your mind is churning, planning, worrying, replaying, rehearsing. And underneath all that noise, there's something trying to speak to you. Something quiet. Something true. But you can't hear it because you never stop talking long enough to listen. Silence isn't emptiness. It's not the absence of something. It's a doorway. It's the space where your heart can finally breathe, where your mind can settle, where something deeper than your anxious thoughts can finally make itself known. Think about water. When it's turbulent, when it's being churned up by wind and currents, you can't see through it. Everything is murky, distorted. But when the water becomes still, when the surface calms, suddenly you can see all the way to the bottom. You can see clearly. Your mind is the same way. Every day, life stirs up your thoughts, demands, worries, plans, fears. And in that turbulence, everything feels confusing. You can't tell what's true. You can't tell what matters. You can't tell which voice inside you is wisdom and which is just fear dressed up as concern. But when you choose stillness, even for a moment, that turbulence begins to calm, and something clearer can appear. This is inner listening. It's not about hearing words in your head like someone speaking to you. It's subtler than that. It's learning to pay attention to the quiet feelings, the gentle nudges, the sense of rightness or wrongness that lives in your body before your mind has a chance to argue with it. You know this feeling. You've had it before. That moment when you just knew something was true, even though you couldn't explain why. Or when every logical reason said to do one thing, but something deeper in you said no, not that, this. And you didn't have words for it. You just felt it. That's the wordless guidance Rumi is pointing to. It doesn't arrive in sentences. It arrives as a sense, a pull, a quiet knowing that lives below the surface of your thinking. But you can only hear it when your mind is quiet enough. When the noise settles. When you stop trying to figure everything out and just pause. And in that pause, something extraordinary happens. Your perception shifts. Because when your mind is noisy, when it's full of fear and desire and old habits of thinking, you don't see things as they are. You see them through a filter. Everything is distorted by what you want, what you're afraid of, what you've learned to expect. But in silence, that filter begins to dissolve. Things become clearer, simpler. You can see what actually matters. You can feel what's actually true. And suddenly the choices that seemed so complicated, so agonizing, become obvious. Not because you thought your way to the answer, but because you became quiet enough to see the answer that was there all along. Silence also reveals what usually gets drowned out. Beneath that constant stream of thoughts, there are deeper things living in you. Longings you've been ignoring, griefs you've been avoiding, insights that have been waiting, sometimes for years, to be heard. In the noise, they don't stand a chance. But in silence, they rise. They surface. And finally, you can hear them. You can acknowledge them. You can tend to what's been asking for your attention all this time. And here's what Rumi wants you to understand. That deeper wisdom you're trying to access, it's already there. It's already inside you. It doesn't need to be created or summoned or earned. It's been there the whole time, waiting patiently beneath the noise, ready to guide you the moment you become quiet enough to notice it. Silence doesn't add anything. It just removes the obstacles. It clears the space. It lets what's already true become audible. But choosing silence, choosing to pause and listen instead of constantly doing and thinking and managing, that takes trust, doesn't it? It goes against everything you've been taught. You've been told that if you stop pushing, everything will fall apart. That if you're not constantly planning and worrying, you'll miss something important. But the truth is, there's something worth hearing inside you, and it can guide you better than all your anxious thinking ever could. You don't need to control everything with your mind. You can trust that when you become still, when you listen, the answer will find you. You don't need elaborate practices for this. You don't need to be a monk or meditate for hours or achieve some special state of consciousness. You just need small moments, regular moments, sitting quietly for a few minutes in the morning, focusing on your breath, walking in nature without your headphones in, repeating a word or phrase that helps your mind settle. Peace, trust, I am held. Just something simple that gives your thoughts a place to anchor so they can finally slow down. These small moments matter more than the dramatic ones. It's not about one perfect meditation experience. It's about returning, again and again, to silence, to stillness, to listening. And over time, something begins to shift. This inner listening stops being something you do occasionally and starts becoming a way you move through life. You find yourself pausing more often, checking in, listening, asking the quiet place inside you, what's true here? What am I being called toward? And you start to feel it. This sense of being in silent conversation with something vast and loving. You don't always have words for it. You can't always explain what you're feeling, but you know you're not alone. You know you're being guided. You know that even in the confusion, even in the not knowing, there's a presence with you, speaking in a language deeper than words. This is what Rumi means when he talks about silence as a doorway to the divine. It's not about religious ritual or formal prayer, though those can be beautiful too. It's about discovering that when you become quiet enough, when you really listen, you find that you're already in relationship with something sacred. You've always been in relationship with it. You just couldn't hear it before. And now, right now, as you lie here in the dark, feeling the softness of where you're resting, feeling the weight of your body beginning to release, this is it. This is the silence. This is the listening. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to force anything. You can just be here, breathing, feeling, noticing what arises when you're not trying to control it. And if you listen, not with your ears, but with that deeper part of you, you might hear it. That quiet voice, that wordless knowing, that sense of being held and guided and loved, even here, even now, even in the middle of whatever you're carrying. It's been speaking to you all along. You just needed the silence to hear it. Chapter 5. The treasure lies within. And what is it saying? What is that quiet voice trying to tell you? It's saying something you've been searching for your whole life, something you've looked for in 1,000 different places, never quite finding it. You already have what you're looking for. The peace you're chasing, the meaning you're seeking, the sense of being enough, being whole, being connected to something sacred. It's not out there. It never was. It's in you. It's always been in you. Rumi used this image. Your heart is like a gold mine. There's treasure buried deep inside you, real treasure, worth more than anything you could acquire in the outside world. But most people spend their entire lives walking past it, never digging, never looking, because they don't know it's there. Or maybe they used to know, once, when they were very young, before the world told them otherwise. But then they learned to look outward. They learned that the answer was in getting the right job, finding the right person, achieving the right things, being seen in the right way. And so they started searching, chasing, accumulating, thinking that maybe this relationship would complete them. Maybe this achievement would finally make them feel worthy. Maybe this experience would fill the emptiness. But it never quite does. Does it? You get the thing you wanted and there's a moment of satisfaction, maybe even joy, and then it fades. And the longing comes back. That sense that something's still missing. That you're still not quite there yet. That you need just one more thing, and then you'll finally feel whole. This isn't because there's something wrong with you. It's because you're looking in the wrong direction. What you're really seeking, that deep, aching longing underneath all the surface wants, it's not for a thing or a person or an accomplishment. It's for wholeness, for union, for that sense of being fully yourself and fully connected to the divine at the same time. And that can't be found outside you. It can only be uncovered within. The problem isn't that the treasure is missing. The problem is that it's hidden, covered over, forgotten. Think about it. How much of your life is spent looking outward? Your attention is constantly pulled toward what's happening around you, what other people think, what you should be doing next. And beneath that, there are layers and layers of conditioning, old beliefs about who you are and what you're worth, fears you learned in childhood, habits you picked up without realizing it. All of this acts like dust on a mirror. The mirror is still there, still perfect, still capable of reflecting light. But you can't see it clearly anymore. It's obscured, covered, forgotten. So when Rumi talks about spiritual practice, prayer, meditation, silence, service, devotion, he's not saying you need to add something to yourself. You're not broken. You're not incomplete. You don't need to become something other than what you already are. You just need to brush off the dust. All these practices are ways of clearing away what's obscuring your true nature. They're ways of remembering what you forgot, of uncovering what's always been there, buried beneath the noise and the fear and the constant outward seeking. But this uncovering requires something most people avoid: real self-knowledge. You have to become willing to look at yourself honestly, not harshly, not with judgment or shame, but with genuine curiosity and care. You have to see your patterns, the ways you protect yourself, the stories you tell, the wounds you carry, the strengths you've been hiding. Because all of that, even the difficult parts, is part of the landscape you're mining. And as you get to know yourself more deeply, as you become honest about what's really there, something starts to emerge. Something that was buried underneath all the self-protection and performance and trying to be who you thought you should be. Your real self. The one that was there before you learned to hide. Before you learned to pretend. Before you started searching outside yourself for what was already within. And here's the part that might surprise you. As you turn inward with this kind of sincerity, you discover you're not just finding yourself. You're finding God. Not God as some distant being in the sky, but God as the most intimate presence, the deepest truth, the source of light that lives at the very core of who you are. Closer than your breath, closer than your thoughts, closer than you ever imagined. This is what Rumi means when he says the treasure lies within. You're not separate from the divine. You never were. The divine has been living in you all along, waiting for you to turn inward and notice. And when you finally do, when you start to taste that inner richness, that sense of wholeness that doesn't depend on anything outside yourself, Something shifts in how you move through the world. You stop needing constant validation. You stop requiring everything to go your way in order to feel okay. You stop desperately seeking the next thing that will finally make you feel complete. Not because you stop caring, not because you become cold or detached, but because you've found a different source, an inner contentment, a quiet dignity that comes from knowing who you really are and what you actually carry within you. This doesn't happen overnight, of course. Mining treasure is slow work. It takes patience. It takes gentleness. It takes showing up again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. There will be days when you forget. Days when you slip back into old patterns, old ways of seeking outside yourself. Days when you feel like you're back at the beginning, like you haven't made any progress at all. But you have. Even the forgetting is part of the process. Even the setbacks are part of uncovering. Because each time you remember to turn inward, each time you choose stillness over distraction, each time you meet yourself with kindness instead of criticism, you're brushing off a little more dust. You're revealing a little more of what's been there all along. And the beautiful thing, the thing that makes this journey worth every difficult moment, is that this treasure doesn't stay hidden inside you forever. As you uncover it, as you begin to live from that deeper place, something naturally flows outward. Not because you're trying to be better or do more or prove anything, but simply because that's what light does. It shines. The wisdom you've gained starts to inform how you move through the world. The compassion you've cultivated for yourself extends naturally to others. The steadiness you've found becomes a calm presence that other people can feel when they're near you. You become a gift. Not because you've achieved something impressive. Not because you've performed perfectly or figured everything out. But because you've done the slow, patient work of uncovering what was always true. And now that truth lives in you in a way that can't be hidden. This is the treasure Rumi wants you to find. Not something you have to earn or acquire or become worthy of, but something you already possess, right now, even as you lie here in the dark, even with all your doubts and fears and unfinished business. The gold mine is in your heart. It's been there all along. You've been walking past it, searching everywhere else, never realizing that what you've been seeking has been with you every single step of the way. So maybe tonight, you can stop searching for just a moment. You can stop trying to find yourself in external things. You can stop wondering if you're enough or if you'll ever arrive. And you can just rest in this simple truth. You already are what you're looking for. The treasure is within you. It always has been. And all you have to do is remember. Chapter 6. The path to God is love. But what unlocks that treasure? What finally brushes away the dust and reveals what's been hidden all along? Rumi's answer is simple, and it's the same answer he gives to almost every question. Love. Not the small love. Not the conditional, fragile, I'll love you if you love me back kind of love. But something vaster. Something that doesn't fit neatly into our usual categories of romantic feeling or family affection. Love, in Rumi's teaching, isn't just an emotion that comes and goes with the weather of your heart. It's not just what you feel when someone makes you happy or when life is going well. It's a way of being, a way of moving through the world, a force that shapes how you see, how you think, how you act, how you exist in relation to everything around you. And it's not just a path to the divine. It's the path, the deepest one, the truest one, the one that leads most directly to what you've been seeking all along. Because here's what Rumi understood. Love is the deepest reality. It's not a nice feeling layered on top of existence. It's what existence is, at its core. It's the force that creates, that connects, that brings life into being and holds it together. When you touch real love, you're touching what's most essential, most true. You're touching the substance of reality itself. And in that touching, you're touching God. Not because God is an idea or a being separate from love, but because God is love, the source of it, the fullness of it, the endless, boundless, unconditional love that holds all things in being. So when Rumi says love is the path to God, he means, the more you open your heart to love, the more you're opening your heart to the divine. The more you let yourself love truth, beauty, goodness, not in some abstract way, but as a living practice, the more you find yourself in direct contact with what is sacred. This isn't about fear. It's not about perfectly following rules or performing the right rituals or arguing your way to belief. It's about letting your heart become so soft, so open, so willing to love, that the divine can finally reach you. And when it does, when you start to really love in this way, something begins to change in you. You can feel it happening. The hard places in you start to soften. The parts of you that were clenched around old resentments, old protections, old ways of keeping yourself separate and safe, they begin to relax, to open. Selfishness loosens its grip, not because you're trying to be a better person, but because love naturally moves outward. It naturally wants to give, to care, to see and honor what's outside of itself. Patience grows where there was irritation. Mercy appears where there was judgment. Generosity emerges where there was scarcity. And you realize, love is transforming you from the inside out. But here's what makes this transformation so profound. As you love more deeply, the separation you've felt your whole life, the sense of being isolated, alone, fundamentally cut off from others and from God, that separation begins to dissolve. Because love doesn't reinforce boundaries. It crosses them. It reaches toward. It says, you're not separate from me. We're part of the same fabric. Your joy is my joy. Your pain is my pain. What happens to you matters to me. And as that me versus them thinking thins out, as your heart stretches wider and wider, you start to feel what you've been missing all along: closeness, connection, the sense that you're not locked in isolation but woven into something vast and alive and deeply, profoundly loving. This is how love leads to God, not as a distant transaction, but as an intimate dissolving of everything that kept you feeling alone. But, and this is crucial, this love has to start somewhere honest. It has to include you. So many people have been taught that loving God means hating themselves, denying themselves, treating themselves as worthless so that God can be everything. But Rumi would say that's not love. That's violence dressed up as devotion. Real love includes yourself. It sees your own soul as worthy of kindness, of care, of the same tenderness you'd offer to anyone else you love. Not in a selfish way, not in an inflated way, but in a humble recognition. I am also a creation of the divine. I am also deserving of love. When you can hold yourself with that kind of gentle regard, when you can see your own struggles and failures with compassion instead of contempt, something shifts. You stop needing to prove yourself. You stop performing for approval. You can just be, knowing that you're already held in love. And from that place, love can flow outward more freely, not just to the people who are easy to love, the ones who love you back, who treat you well, who meet your needs, but to everyone, to strangers, to the people who are difficult, to the ones who've hurt you, to animals and trees and the earth itself. This is the love Rumi is pointing toward. The love that doesn't stop at a comfortable border. The love that keeps stretching, keeps reaching, keeps including more and more in its embrace. It's not conditional. It's not a bargain. It doesn't say, I'll love you if you behave the way I want. It's a steady orientation of the heart, a choice you make again and again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, to keep your heart turned toward love, toward goodness, toward the divine, even when you're in pain, even when life is confusing, even when people disappoint you and circumstances don't go your way. But this love isn't just a feeling you carry around privately. It has to show up in the world. It has to become action. Compassion for someone who's struggling. Service when you see a need. Forgiveness when you've been hurt. Kindness in moments when harshness would be easier. Every time you choose to act from love, you're training your heart. You're teaching it to stay on this path, to keep choosing this direction, even when everything in you wants to close down and protect yourself. And here's the gift, the one that makes all of this worth it. As you keep walking this path, as you keep choosing love in your thoughts and feelings and actions, day after day, moment after moment, your awareness of God becomes more vivid. Not as an idea you think about, not as a doctrine you believe in, but as a living presence you can feel. A closeness that's palpable, an intimacy that grows deeper with every act of love. You start to sense that to love deeply is already to be walking with God. That every moment you open your heart, you're opening to the divine. That every time you choose compassion over cruelty, generosity over withholding, forgiveness over bitterness, you're participating in the very nature of God. This is what Rumi wants you to know. You don't have to wait until you're perfect to experience the divine. You don't have to figure everything out or overcome all your flaws or become some idealized version of yourself. You just have to love, as honestly and fully as you can, starting right where you are, starting with yourself, starting with the person next to you, starting with this moment, this breath, this chance to soften your heart just a little bit more. Because love is not just the destination. Love is the way you get there. And the beautiful secret, the one you discover as you walk this path, is that there's nowhere to arrive. The journey itself is the union you've been seeking. Every step taken in love is already a step taken with God. So tonight, as you rest here, you don't have to do anything grand or dramatic. You don't have to manufacture some intense feeling or achieve some spiritual state. You can just let yourself feel whatever tenderness is already in you. Whatever care, whatever small seed of love is still alive in your heart, even after everything you've been through. That's enough. That seed is enough. Because love, once planted, grows on its own. It deepens on its own. It leads you where you need to go on its own. You just have to let it. And in the letting, you'll find what you've been looking for all along. Not someday, not when you're finally ready, but here, now, in this very moment of opening, in this very act of love. Chapter 7. Oneness and Unity of All. And when you start to love in this way, when you really let your heart open wide enough, you begin to see something that changes everything. You begin to see that the separation you've always taken for granted isn't real. Not in the way you thought it was. Look around you, even now in your mind's eye. You see distinct things, don't you? Different people, different objects. You and me, this and that. Everything divided into separate pieces, separate categories, separate lives. And yes, those differences are real. Your experience is yours. Mine is mine. We have different bodies, different histories, different thoughts in our heads right now. But Rumi would ask you to look deeper, to see past the surface, to notice what's underneath all those apparent differences. Because beneath every form, beneath every color and culture and belief and personality, there's one reality, one source, one spiritual ground from which everything emerges and to which everything returns. Think of the ocean. On the surface, you see thousands of waves, each one distinct, each one rising and falling in its own time, each one looking separate from all the others. But beneath them, it's all one water, one ocean. The waves are real, they're not an illusion, but they're not ultimately separate. They're expressions of the same vast, unified whole. You are a wave. I am a wave. Everyone you've ever met, everyone you've ever loved or lost or struggled with, waves. All of us rising from the same ocean, all of us made of the same essence, all of us connected at a level deeper than our separate forms. But you don't see this most of the time, because your ego, that part of you that's organized around survival and self-protection, only sees separation. It sees me and other, us and them, safe and dangerous, mine and yours. This isn't wrong, exactly. Your ego is trying to help you navigate a complex world, but it's also keeping you locked in a very narrow view, one that hides the truth of how deeply connected you actually are to everything around you. And that narrow view? It's the source of so much suffering. Because when you believe you're fundamentally separate, when you think the boundary of your skin marks the edge of who you really are, then everyone else becomes either a resource to use or a threat to defend against. Other people's pain doesn't really touch you. Their joy doesn't feel like your joy. Their struggles are their problem, not yours. But what if you could see differently? What if your vision could become more refined, more inward, more spiritual? Not in some woo-woo sense, but in the sense of seeing what's actually true beneath the surface. When that happens, when perception deepens, you start to notice how interwoven everything is. How your life is touching and being touched by countless other lives. How events ripple out in ways you never imagined. How hearts are connected by invisible threads, so that what happens to one person affects everyone around them. You start to see that harming another person isn't just mean or wrong in some abstract moral sense. It's harming yourself, because they're not separate from you. Not really. You're part of the same fabric. When you tear at them, you tear at the whole, and you're part of that whole. And in this seeing, something remarkable happens to judgment. You know how quick you are to judge, right? To label someone as good or bad, worthy or unworthy, right or wrong. To fix them in your mind as that kind of person and close the door on any deeper understanding. But when you start to see others as part of the same spiritual whole you are, as expressions of the same divine source, just in different forms, that harsh judgment softens. You become curious instead of condemning. You wonder what shaped them, what wounds they carry, what fears are driving their behavior. You can still see clearly when something is harmful. You can still hold boundaries. But there's more patience, more understanding, more space for people to be complex and struggling, just like you are. And hatred? Hatred can't survive this vision. Hatred depends on radical separation. It requires you to see the other person as so completely different from you, so alien, so other, that you can wish them harm without feeling it rebound in your own heart. But when you recognize that the person you hate shares the same sacred source you do, when you see that they're another wave on the same ocean, another expression of the same divine reality, hatred loses its foundation. It starts to crumble. You might still dislike their actions. You might still need to protect yourself or others from harm. But that hot, consuming hatred? It fades, because you can't hate part of yourself without suffering for it. In its place, something else grows. Compassion. Real compassion. Not pity from a distance, but the kind that feels another person's pain as if it's happening in your own body. Because in a sense, it is. When you see unity, when you feel how connected everything is, another person's suffering stops being abstract. It becomes intimate, personal. You see someone struggling and your heart responds, "This is also my pain, just wearing a different face." And this seeing doesn't stop at other people. It extends to everything. To animals who feel fear and love and loss just like you do. To plants and trees breathing and growing and dying in their own time. To the earth itself, this living body that holds you, feeds you, gives you everything you need to survive. All of it is part of the same living tapestry. All of it woven together. all of it sacred. When you start to sense this, really sense it, not just think about it as a nice idea, your whole sense of who you are begins to shift. You're not just this isolated individual, fighting to survive in a hostile universe. You're a unique expression of something vast, a particular note in an infinite symphony, a single thread in a tapestry so large you can't see its edges. This brings a strange combination of feelings, humility and dignity at the same time. Humility, because you're not the center of everything. You're not separate and special in the way your ego wants to believe. You're part of something so much larger than yourself. But also dignity, real dignity, because you are part of it. You matter. You're not meaningless or accidental. You're a genuine expression of the sacred, necessary to the whole in a way nothing else could be. This is what Rumi wants you to see, not as a philosophy to study, but as a living truth to embody. And embodying it, living from this awareness of oneness, that's a practice. It's not something you understand once and then you're done. It's a way of moving through life, moment by moment, choice by choice. When someone frustrates you, you pause and remember, we're connected. What does this moment need? How can I respond with understanding instead of reactivity? When you see suffering, you let yourself feel it. You let it move you to action instead of looking away and pretending it has nothing to do with you. When you encounter someone different from you, different beliefs, different background, different everything, you honor that difference while also recognizing the shared source underneath. You don't flatten their uniqueness, but you don't use it to create walls either. Every small act of empathy is a practice of oneness. Every moment you choose kindness over cruelty, connection over isolation, understanding over judgment, you're strengthening this awareness. You're learning to see the way Rumi sees, the way the mystics have always seen, the way everything actually is when you look past the surface forms. And tonight, as you lie here, feeling your breath move in and out, feeling the aliveness in your body, maybe you can sense it. Just a little. The way you're not actually alone. The way you're held in something vast. The way your life is touching and being touched by countless other lives. Even now, even in this quiet moment. You're not separate. You never were. You're a wave on the ocean. A note in the symphony. A thread in the tapestry. And the ocean loves you. The symphony needs you. The tapestry would be incomplete without your particular color, your particular pattern, your particular way of being. You are the universe experiencing itself in this specific, irreplaceable form. And so is everyone else. All of us together. All of us one. All of us coming home to what we've always been. Chapter 8. Gratitude as a spiritual practice. And when you begin to see this oneness, when you feel how held you are in this vast, interconnected web of existence, something quite natural wants to arise in your heart. Thank you. Not as an obligation, not as something you're supposed to feel, but as a genuine response to recognizing what you've been given. Because when you really look, when you pause long enough to notice, you start to see how much is already here. How much has been given to you that you didn't earn, didn't create, didn't demand into being. This breath moving through you right now, the fact that your heart has been beating, without your conscious effort, every moment since before you were born. The people who have loved you, even imperfectly. The moments of beauty you've witnessed. The chances you've had to learn, to grow, to begin again. Gratitude, in Rumi's teaching, isn't just good manners. It's not a polite thank you you offer out of social convention. It's a way of orienting your whole being, a lens through which you choose to see your life. It's when you shift your attention from what you don't have to what you do, from what went wrong to what somehow, against all odds, went right, from the closed doors to the ones that opened, from the losses to what remains. And something extraordinary happens when you make this shift. Your heart softens. It opens. Like a flower turning towards sunlight, your whole being becomes more receptive, more alive, more able to sense the love and meaning and presence that's been surrounding you all along. Because here's what Rumi understood. Gratitude is actually more precious than the things you're grateful for. The blessing comes and goes. The good moment passes. The gift gets used up or breaks or fades. But the capacity to be grateful, that can stay with you. That can deepen over time. That can find light even in the darkness. A thankful heart is worth more than any single thing it receives, because it can transform any situation. It can find something to appreciate in almost any circumstance. It doesn't need perfect conditions to feel connected, to feel held, to feel alive. And when you practice gratitude regularly, not just when things are going well, but as a steady discipline, you start to notice something underneath all the individual gifts. There's a giver, not some distant accountant tallying up blessings and debits, but a presence, a generosity, an intelligence that has been sustaining your life from the very beginning. That gives you breath without asking for payment. That makes the sun rise each morning. That allows beauty to exist at all. Gratitude becomes a way of recognizing that presence. A quiet acknowledgement. There is something taking care of me. Something offering itself to me at every moment. Something that wants me to live, to grow, to experience this gift of existence. And once you start noticing this, once you tune your attention to it, something miraculous happens. Ordinary moments become sacred. The warmth of your blanket, the taste of water when you're thirsty, a kind word from someone who didn't have to speak, the breeze on your face, the fact that you can see, hear, feel, experience this world at all. These aren't just mundane occurrences anymore. They're opportunities, invitations to remember, to connect, to feel, even for just a second, the extraordinary gift of being alive. This is what Rumi means when he says gratitude turns ordinary moments into occasions of spiritual connection. You don't need a temple or a ritual or a special event. You just need to pay attention, to notice, to let your heart respond to what's already here. And here's what makes this practice so powerful. It shifts where your mind habitually goes. Your mind, left to itself, tends to focus on what's missing. What went wrong? What you don't have yet? What's broken or painful or disappointing? It's not trying to torture you, it's trying to solve problems, to protect you, to make sure you survive. But that constant focus on lack creates its own kind of suffering, doesn't it? You start to feel like your life is defined by what's absent, like you're always falling short, like there's never enough. Gratitude doesn't erase the real problems. It doesn't pretend everything is perfect, but it gently trains your attention to also see what's supporting you, what's working, what you do have, and that brings balance. It brings a kind of peace that doesn't depend on fixing everything first. It also does something else, something you might not expect. It softens resentment and envy. When your heart is actively remembering its own blessings, when you're genuinely thankful for what's in your life, it becomes harder for bitterness to take over completely. You can still feel pain. You can still acknowledge what's unfair or difficult. But gratitude keeps the resentment from consuming you, keeps the envy from poisoning everything. And as your heart softens this way, as thankfulness becomes more natural to you, you become more receptive, more open, more able to receive new guidance, new help, new insight. It's like gratitude sends a signal to life, to the universe, to the divine. I'm paying attention. I'm noticing what you're offering. I'm ready to receive more. Not in a greedy way, not as a transaction, but as a simple openness, a willingness to keep learning, to keep growing, to keep receiving whatever comes next. This doesn't happen automatically, of course. It takes practice. Regular, simple practice. Maybe it's naming 3 things you're grateful for before you sleep. Maybe it's pausing during the day to notice one small gift. The taste of your coffee, the smile of a stranger, the fact that your body carried you through another day. Maybe it's keeping a journal where you write down moments of grace, so you can return to them when you forget. Whatever form it takes, the practice itself matters. Because each time you consciously turn toward gratitude, you're strengthening that capacity in yourself. You're making it more natural, more spontaneous, more available even in difficulty. And over time, slowly, gently, without force, gratitude stops being something you have to remember to do and starts becoming something you just are. A grateful person. Someone whose heart has learned to recognize gifts. Someone who sees life as fundamentally generous, even when it's also hard. And at its deepest level, this gratitude becomes something more than appreciation for individual things. It becomes a relationship, a conversation, a form of worship. Each thank you, whether spoken aloud or whispered silently in your heart, becomes a small act of devotion, a way of acknowledging the source of all these gifts, a way of saying, I see what you've given me. I recognize your generosity. I feel how held I am. This is gratitude as a spiritual practice, not just as a feel-good technique or a positive thinking exercise, but as a genuine path of connection with the divine. Because when you're truly grateful, you're not just thanking the universe abstractly. You're responding to a relationship. You're acknowledging a presence that has been caring for you all along, often in ways you never noticed. And that presence? It receives your gratitude. It feels your recognition. And in that exchange, your thankfulness met by that eternal generosity, something sacred happens. You feel less alone, less abandoned, less like you're fighting through life on your own strength. You feel accompanied, supported, loved in a way that's so fundamental, so constant, that it's easy to overlook. Until you pause, until you notice, until you let yourself say, even just in your heart, thank you for this breath. Thank you for this day I was given. Thank you for the people who've loved me. Thank you for the beauty I've witnessed. Thank you for the chances I've been offered. Thank you for holding me, even when I couldn't feel it. Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for being here. Thank you. And in that simple act of recognition, you're not just expressing gratitude. You're practicing the presence of God. You're remembering what you've always been held by. You're coming home to what has never left you. So tonight, even in the quiet dark, even with whatever heaviness you're carrying, maybe you can find just one thing. Just one small thing to be grateful for. The softness where you're resting. The fact that you're still here. The possibility that tomorrow might surprise you. The sense, however faint, that you're not doing this alone. That's enough. That's more than enough. Because gratitude isn't about the size of the gift. It's about the opening of the heart. And your heart? It's already beginning to open. Right now. Right here. In this very moment of remembering. Chapter 9. Change yourself to change the world. And once your heart begins to open like this, once you start to see the unity, feel the gratitude, taste the love that connects everything, a question naturally arises. What do I do with this? How do I live this? How do I respond to all the brokenness and suffering and injustice I see in the world? It's easy to feel overwhelmed by what's wrong out there. The conflicts, the cruelty, the systems that seem so broken, so resistant to change. The people who won't listen, won't grow, won't stop causing harm. And your first instinct might be to point outward, to focus all your energy on what they need to change. what the world needs to fix, what those people need to understand. But Rumi would gently turn you back around, back toward yourself. Not because the outer problems aren't real, not because injustice doesn't matter, but because real change, lasting change, doesn't begin out there. It begins in here, in you, in the transformation of your own heart, your own thoughts, your own actions. This isn't some form of spiritual bypassing, some excuse to ignore what's happening in the world. It's actually the opposite. It's recognizing something profound. Your inner world shapes your outer world more than you realize. The way you think about people influences how you speak to them. The resentment you carry colors every interaction. The fear in your heart makes you defensive, closed, unable to listen. The judgment in your mind creates separation where connection could be. All of this, all of these inner states, quietly creates effects in the world around you, even when you're not aware of it. Especially when you're not aware of it. And when you spend all your time blaming others, pointing to what's wrong with them, you lose something crucial: your own power to grow, your own ability to change, your own responsibility for the atmosphere you create wherever you go. Blaming keeps you stuck. It makes you helpless, waiting for everyone else to become different before things can get better. But turning your attention inward, honestly looking at your own resentments, your own prejudices, your own ways of contributing to division, that restores your power. Because there's always something you can change. There's always some place in your own heart that can soften. Some pattern of thought that can shift. Some habit of reaction that can be interrupted. This is where real transformation happens. Not in grand gestures or perfect ideologies, but in the quiet, difficult work of changing the qualities of your own heart. Taking your resentment and slowly, patiently, transforming it into compassion. Taking your envy and learning to genuinely celebrate others. Taking your arrogance and humbling it into something more honest and open. When your heart changes like this, when it softens and widens, your behavior naturally follows. You don't have to force yourself to be kind. Kindness flows from a kind heart. You don't have to perform patience. Patience emerges from an inner spaciousness that isn't so easily threatened. And it's not just your actions that change. Even your thoughts create atmospheres. The habitual thoughts you carry, whether they're cynical or hopeful, hostile or generous, fearful or trusting, they create a climate inside you that affects everyone around you. People feel it, even if they can't name it. When you walk into a room carrying anger, people tense up. When you bring genuine warmth, something in them relaxes. When your thoughts are constantly critical and suspicious, that energy radiates outward. When your mind rests in something more peaceful, that peace becomes contagious. And your actions? Even the small ones that seem insignificant? They radiate outward in ways you'll never fully see. That moment of honesty when lying would have been easier. That act of patience when you wanted to snap. That choice to listen instead of defend. That gesture of kindness towards someone who didn't deserve it. These aren't minor things. They spread. They ripple through families, through workplaces, through communities. They influence people more than your speeches ever could. More than your complaints. More than your certainty about what everyone else should do. Because here's what Rumi understood. The outer problems you see in the world, the conflict, the greed, the injustice, they're not separate from what's happening in individual hearts. They're reflections. Patterns that exist in societies because they exist in people. In you. In me. In all of us. Seeing this connection can be uncomfortable. It means you can't just point to the villains out there and say, it's all their fault. It means recognizing that some of what you see in the world exists, in smaller or hidden forms, in your own heart too. But this recognition is also strangely empowering, because it means your inner work isn't just a private, self-absorbed project. It's a contribution. It's a form of service. Every time you reduce your own anger, you make the world slightly less hostile. Every time you work through your own prejudice, you make the world slightly more just. Every time you choose compassion over cruelty in your own heart, you add something to the collective atmosphere that everyone breathes. This is inner work as an offering, as a gift to humanity, not instead of outer action, but as the foundation for outer action that actually heals instead of just perpetuating the same patterns in a different form. And here's something people often miss. Example is more persuasive than argument. You can talk all you want about patience, courage, and love. You can have all the right opinions and post all the right things and know all the right words. But if you don't embody these qualities, if your life doesn't reflect what you're preaching, your words are just noise. But a person who actually lives with patience, who shows genuine courage, who loves in a way that's visible and real, that person changes people. Not by convincing them intellectually, but by showing them what's possible. By making something abstract suddenly concrete and real. Lived character invites transformation in a way arguments never can. People see you navigate difficulty with grace and they think, maybe I could do that too. They witness your kindness and something in them softens. They feel your steadiness and it gives them permission to stop performing so much. You become a living demonstration of what you've learned. And that demonstration plants seeds in ways you'll never know about. But you have to understand, this isn't a one-time achievement. You don't transform yourself once and then you're done. This is continuous, ongoing, a daily practice of noticing, adjusting, realigning. Every day offers you chances to see your reactions, to catch yourself in old patterns, to choose differently, to return again and again to your deeper values instead of your surface impulses. Some days you'll do better than others. Some days you'll forget everything you've learned and react from fear or hurt or habit. That's okay. That's part of it. The practice is in the returning, in the willingness to keep looking, keep growing, keep transforming. And here's what makes all of this worth it. When you change, when you really change, not just perform or pretend, but actually transform in your heart, you shift something in the collective. Because you're not separate. Remember? You're a thread in the tapestry, a wave in the ocean. And when you change, the whole fabric adjusts. The whole ocean moves differently. When enough individuals do this inner work, the feel of a community begins to shift. The atmosphere changes. What seemed impossible starts to feel possible. What felt rigid begins to loosen. Changing yourself isn't separate from changing the world. It's not a lesser thing, not a cop-out, not spiritual selfishness. It's one of the most direct, most powerful ways to affect everything around you. Because you can't control what other people do. You can't force the world to be different. But you can work with what's in your hands. Your own heart, your own thoughts, your own choices. And that work, as humble and hidden as it might seem, is sacred. It's real. It matters. So tonight, as you rest here, you don't need to carry the weight of fixing everything. You don't need to solve all the world's problems or change all the people who frustrate you. You just need to tend to your own heart. Notice where it's hard and ask it to soften. Notice where it's closed and invite it to open. Notice where you're still reacting from old wounds and give yourself permission to heal. That's enough. That's the work. That's your contribution. And it's more powerful than you know. Because every heart that heals makes the whole world slightly more whole. Every person who transforms makes transformation more possible for everyone. You are not just changing yourself. You are changing the field we all share. You are shifting what's possible. One breath, one choice, one moment of inner work at a time. And that matters. It has always mattered. And now we come to the final chapter. Follow what your soul loves. But how do you know which inner work to do? What direction to move in? Which path to take when so many seem possible, and you feel lost in the noise of all the shoulds and expectations? Rumi would tell you, listen to what you love. Not the fleeting, surface things. Not the impulses that flare up and fade. Not the cravings that promise satisfaction but leave you empty. Deeper than that, there's something in you, beneath all the noise, beneath all the conditioning and fear and performance, that knows what it loves. Your soul, your truest self, the part of you that existed before the world told you who to be. And that love, it's not random, it's not misleading, it's a compass. It's pointing you toward what's real, what's beautiful, what's life-giving, toward the work you're meant to do, the way you're meant to move through the world, the particular gifts you carry that no one else has in quite the same way. But you have to learn to distinguish between what your soul truly loves and what your ego merely wants. Your ego wants security, admiration, comfort, control. It chases things that will make you look good, feel safe, prove your worth. And those desires, they flare up hot and urgent, demanding attention, making everything else feel irrelevant in the moment. But then they fade. They leave you restless, unsatisfied, still searching for the next thing that will finally fill that empty place. What your soul loves is different, quieter, more steady. It doesn't demand or grasp. It attracts. It draws you gently, persistently, like a thread pulling you toward home. And when you follow it, even when it's difficult, there's a sense of rightness underneath everything. A quiet joy that doesn't depend on outcomes. A meaning that holds even when things get hard. And here's how you can tell the difference. Genuine love opens your heart. It makes you more honest, more generous, more willing to grow. It calls you toward truth, toward goodness, toward becoming more fully yourself. But if something is consistently pulling you toward deception, toward cruelty, toward numbness or smallness, that's not your soul's love. That's your ego's appetite. That's fear dressed up as desire. Your soul's love will always point you toward life, toward expansion, toward what's real. And that steady, sincere pull you feel toward certain work, certain people, certain ways of being in the world, that's not accidental. That's guidance. It's as if your soul is whispering, this way. This is the direction of your becoming. This is what you're here to explore, to create, to offer. But following that whisper requires something difficult. Trusting love more than fear. Fear is loud. It's insistent. It tells you all the reasons you shouldn't follow what you love. It's not practical. It's not safe. People will judge you. You'll fail. You'll disappoint them. You'll disappoint yourself. Stay small. Stay silent. Stay where you know you can survive. And fear is persuasive, isn't it? Because it's trying to protect you. It's genuinely concerned about your safety, your survival, your ability to navigate a world that can be harsh and unpredictable. But Rumi would ask you, is safety the highest value? Is mere survival what you're here for? What if you gave more authority to love? What if you let what you deeply, truly love set your course, even when fear is screaming at you to stop? What if you trusted that the love itself, the genuine soul love, not the ego appetite, will carry you where you need to go? Because here's what happens when you do that. When you start living from what your soul loves, alignment. Suddenly your mind, your heart, and your body aren't being pulled in 10 different directions. They're moving together, in harmony, like a river that's found its natural course instead of being dammed up and diverted. You're not performing anymore. You're not trying to be what everyone expects. You're not splitting yourself into pieces, showing different versions to different people. You're whole, in one piece, aligned with something true. And that alignment? It awakens courage. Not the courage that comes from being fearless. You'll still feel afraid. But a different kind of courage, one that comes from the love itself. The courage to be vulnerable, to take risks, to face uncertainty and opposition because what you love is worth it. The love supplies the strength you need. It makes you steadier, more able to endure difficulty, more willing to keep going when others would give up. Because you're not just chasing something external anymore. You're living from something internal, something that can't be taken away. And as you follow what your soul loves, something else emerges, your unique purpose. Not a purpose someone gave you, not a role you're supposed to fill or a script you're supposed to follow, but something that's genuinely, authentically yours. Because what your soul loves is connected to your particular gifts, your specific way of being in the world, your irreplaceable contribution. When you honor these loves, when you let them guide your choices, a sense of purpose naturally unfolds. You're not copying anyone else's path. You're walking your own. And that path, however humble it might look from the outside, is exactly what the world needs from you. But you have to understand something important. This isn't about self-indulgence. Following what your soul loves isn't the same as chasing pleasure at any cost. It's not about doing whatever feels good in the moment or avoiding anything difficult or uncomfortable. It's about aligning with what genuinely nourishes you. What feeds not just your ego but your deepest self. And what nourishes you at that level will, almost always, flow outward to benefit others. Maybe through your creativity, maybe through your care for people, maybe through your work for justice, maybe just through your presence, the way you show up, the quality of attention you bring, the love you make tangible in ordinary moments. When you're living from what your soul truly loves, you become a gift. Not because you're trying to be, but because that's what happens when you're aligned with your deepest truth. But you won't stay aligned all the time. That's important to understand. Distraction will pull you away. Doubt will creep in. Fear will get loud again. Other people's expectations will press on you. You'll lose the thread sometimes. You'll forget what you love. You'll get caught up in what you think you should do instead of what you're called to do. That's normal. That's part of being human. The practice is simply this. Keep coming back. Keep returning to what you truly love. In God, in truth, in life, in work, in relationship, in the way you spend your days. Let that love reorient you. Let it clear your path. Let it remind you, again and again, what you're actually here for. Because you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know the entire path ahead of time. You just need to know the next step. And the next step is always in the direction of what you love. What makes your soul come alive? What calls to you, even when it's difficult? What would you do even if no one was watching? Even if you never got recognition for it? That's your compass. That's your guide. And tonight, as you lie here, maybe you can feel it, even faintly. That quiet pull towards something that matters to you, something you care about, something that feels true. You don't have to act on it right now. You don't have to make big changes or dramatic declarations. You just have to notice it, acknowledge it, remember that it's there. Because what your soul loves is not a distraction from your life. It is your life, the real one, the true one, the one you came here to live. And every time you move toward it, even in small ways, you're moving toward yourself, toward your purpose, toward the divine working through you in the particular way only you can express. So trust it. Trust what you love, not the fleeting wants, not the ego's cravings, but that deep, steady, soul-level love that's been with you all along, patiently waiting for you to notice. It knows where you're going, even when you don't, especially when you don't. All you have to do is follow. And so we come to the end of our journey together tonight. I hope that somewhere in these teachings, somewhere in these quiet hours we've shared, you found a moment of peace. A sense that maybe, just maybe, the weight you've been carrying doesn't have to feel quite so heavy anymore. Rumi's wisdom has been guiding lost souls, wounded hearts, and searching spirits for 800 years. And if even one of his truths found its way into your heart tonight, if you felt seen or understood or less alone, then these hours have served their purpose. You don't have to remember everything. You don't have to hold on to all of it. Just let whatever resonated settle into you naturally, the way water soaks into earth. The wound as a doorway, letting go to be free, surrender and trust, silence and inner listening, the treasure within, love as the path, oneness with all, gratitude as practice, changing yourself to change the world, following what your soul loves. These aren't just teachings to study. They're invitations to live differently, to see yourself differently, to remember what you've always been. If this journey brought you comfort, if it helped you find even a little rest, I would be deeply grateful if you would consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It helps more people find their way to these teachings when they need them most. And there will be more wisdom, more guidance, more quiet spaces like this where you can come and remember what's true. Until then, sleep well, rest deeply, and know that you are being looked after. You have always been looked after, and you always will be.